And now the last thing we want to do is create a drop shadow on this text. Again, to figure this out, you can go in Google and search for CSS drop shadow text, and we'll end up with the text shadow property here. Let's take a look at the try it yourself. And so we have 3 parts to the text shadow. If we go back to the definition here and we scroll down, it will explain to us what that is. So the first is H shadow, which is the horizontal shadow. That is, how far from the element should that shadow be? We can see a description right here. Next, we have V shadow, which is the vertical position. And note that negative values are allowed, which means that we can go up with the vertical shadow by using a negative value, or left with the horizontal shadow if we use a negative value. And then the blur radius, which is how fuzzy that shadow should be, or how far that shadow should spread. Okay, so let's give that a try in the browser. We'll make sure our button is selected here, and let's add a text shadow. Let's move it 2 pixels to the right and 2 pixels down, and let's set the border radius to 2 pixels. You can see it adding the shadow up here, and let's set the color to black. Okay, so this seems pretty dramatic. Let's see what happens if we use a gray color. Now, something that we haven't talked about hexadecimal values, which is that if the first 3 numbers are repeated in the last 3 numbers, then you can just use the first 3. So for example, I know that 333333 is a darker form of gray. So I can just use the first 3 characters, 333, in order to get that effect. Okay, so it looks better, but still a little bit too dark. Part of that might be that we're spreading a little too far from the text. So I'm going to change the values here to 1 pixel to the right, 1 pixel down, and a spread of 1 pixel too. Okay, that tightened it up, but it still looks a little too dark. Now I know from experience that I can continue to increase these numbers to lighten it. The idea is that the more colors that you add together, the brighter the color becomes until it becomes white. So if you include all of red, all of blue, and all of green, you're going to get white on a screen. These 3 numbers basically represent red, blue, and green. And as the numbers go up, the color gets lighter as it gets closer to white. So I'm going to try going to 666 and see what that looks like. Okay, to me that looks pretty clean actually. If we bump up to 999, which is even lighter, it starts to wash out with the white a bit. So I'm going to go down to 666.